Hello, Brown and Gold champions. I'm Keener Fry, Executive Director of the University of Wyoming Alumni Association. Thank you for joining our first virtual town hall brought to you by UWAA Federal Credit Union. The UWAA is all about providing the pathways to share the legacy, pride, and spirit of UW worldwide. While we typically carry out this purpose with many live events across the country, these changing times have prompted us to pivot to virtual gatherings to engage our champions. Our Brown and Gold champions are dedicated alumni, parents, and friends who help make it possible for the UWAA to complete our mission to support the university. As champions, you are active in advocating for prospective students to attend UW, leading our networks and chapters, offering career support, serving on UW advisory and leadership boards, and promoting UW in your areas of influence. As an expression of our appreciation for your support, I am pleased to present our featured speakers, Director of Athletics Tom Berman, Head Football Coach Craig Bowl, and Senior Associate Athletics Director Randy Welniak to share updates on UW athletics, Cowboy football, and Cowboy Joe club and ticketing matters. Tom, Coach, and Randy, welcome and thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to participate tonight. Tom, let's kick off tonight's event. First, how special has it been for you to be the Director of Athletics at your alma mater and in your hometown? That just doesn't happen very often. Tom?
Thank you, Keener. Before I answer your question, I would like to congratulate you on the job you've done over the years. I've known you forever, and you just do awesome work, and you're really doing great things with the Alumni Association. We're thrilled to partner with you. Mindy and UWAA, we're glad you're in Wyoming and you support the university, and we are very appreciative of all that you do. Clancy, great job putting this together. But being the athletics director at the University of Wyoming is a privilege, it's an honor, and being someone who went to school here and spent much of their life in the state of Wyoming. I left for about 12 years and bounced around the country, but always had a desire to return. It's wonderful, and I'm thrilled to be here, and that's part of the reason why I'm here 14 years later. And I love the people, I love the place, and we just got to keep pushing and getting better and better and building a program that Wyoming alumni, friends, etc., can rally around and continue to get excited about. So thank you.
That is great. Hey, Tom, I just know you have been a student athletes first AD. Just describe over the time that you've been the athletic director and maybe even a few current year, in the midst of all of this, we tend to lose sight of the great things that have been accomplished by your athletes in all of your sports. Share a little bit about 3 or 4 of those that may be of great significance and meaningful to you.
Well, obviously, you're in this for multiple reasons, but one is you got to love to win. So, I mean, when you look back on the years, whether it be Coach Bull and his team beating Boise State in War Memorial Stadium, hosting the Mountain West Championship against San Diego State, winning the 2015 Mountain West basketball tournament, watching our wrestling program get on a national stage a few years ago, with Bryce Meredith becoming almost a phenomenon and a cult figure in the wrestling world. Women's basketball team winning the women's NIT in my first year on the job. Those were all great, and I love them all. And they motivate me immensely. But there's student athlete success stories that are really motivating. Coach Bull, if you haven't seen this video now, Wyoming football had an amazing semester academically in spite of this incredible turmoil. I think the GPA was like a 3.3, which is phenomenal. That's unheard of in football in particular, but in college athletics. So those are heartwarming. I'll tell you a quick story that happened today that just made me proud. I work out in the basement of the arena where the basketball teams work out, and I was down there lifting, and I ran into Hunter Thompson, who's a Wyoming kid, and Hunter Maldonado. And I got to know those kids better during the transition of coaching staff. But they had been reading about all the financial challenges facing college athletics and the turmoil and the drama. And Hunter Thompson said, you know, Mr. Berman, we were thinking if we knew where you lived, we were going to drive by your house and drop you off a 6-pack with a note, just saying thanks for all that you do. And I thought, you know what? It's cool that young people know that we're doing everything we can to help them understand, and that they understand what we're trying to do to help them. And the good news is both of those kids are of age, so I didn't have to worry about it.
That's good stuff there. Well, in March, when we got back from the Mountain West Conference basketball tournament, Tom, life looked a little bit differently. Why don't you walk us through some of the challenges that you have had in the athletics program and how you began managing those, and maybe even some of the success stories that you never expected that would come from crisis?
Wow. I will tell you the last 3.5 months have been, it's just been the most challenging time of my career, because there's no way to prepare for something like this. I never spent any time worrying about a pandemic prior to probably late February. I mean, I kind of heard about COVID in sometime in February, and back then we called it Corona. And so there's been so much. The greatest challenge is accepting that you don't have control, and that you can, our job is to plan. And we've got, at one point we started off with 5 different scenarios for how we would operate, both and we broke it into 2 sectors: student athlete, the reintroduction of student athletes to campus, and then secondarily, how we would operate events, football in particular. And it's just very complex. The good news is we're going through it together. And what I mean by that is literally every day I'm on Zoom calls with ADs and conference commissioners and others, talking about what are they experiencing, what are they thinking about, and how do we move through this together. It's been rewarding in that regard, just building better relationships with people. And so as far as success, I would say one thing I'm very proud of, I've been absolutely transparent with our staff. We have already made some budget cuts, and the reality is we will make more budget cuts, and they are going to hurt. And the ones we've already done have had some impact on people and programs. But our coaches and our staff, for the most part, have been so willing to help, that they understand that this is not something that anybody did. It's not a lack of planning. It's not a lack of fundraising or ticket revenue. It is a catastrophic event that has happened maybe once or twice since the 1900s. So it's been rewarding to know that I think we have a good culture and people care about each other.
Well, Tom, you all have done an amazing job. I think it's fantastic. Could you just share, you've had a couple hundred student athletes back to campus already and training and the like, and share just briefly about the testing and that being the first preparation to planning to play a game in September.
Yeah, well, first thing we did was when we started putting a plan together, we broke up into committees and divided out duties. But the overriding theme was we have to hit a home run. We can't fail at this, because if we fail and we create a hot spot in Laramie, it's going to have a financial impact to the institution that we're going to have a hard time overcoming. We do not want to do that. So we have been very conservative, and at times frustrating our student athletes and our administration, our coaches. But, we have tested 220 some athletes and coaches to date, and we have 0 positives. We went through a very demanding 14-day quarantine program. We have structure in place. Nobody enters the McMurray High Altitude Performance Center that shouldn't be in there. No, every day they go into lift, they go through a process of being interviewed, questioned, thermal scanning. They take off their shoes, they put on different shoes, they wear a mask, and we go work out. And then when they're done, they grab to-go food. They don't eat together, and they move on. But it's complicated, but it's pretty simple. We're trying to limit risk every single day and every interaction. You cannot eliminate risk, but if we can limit risk, we may get to football. And I would say this, I'm going to use this as a marketing opportunity. This mask right here, we wear them. And we would ask all of you to wear your masks, because if Wyoming gets hot and and it already is warming up, there's more COVID the last 3 days than I think in any other time. It's possible we are not playing. So we need you to participate. Please wear your mask. Thank you.
Great message, Tom. And just, I know it's important, as you all, one of the major front doors to this university, it is important to see if we can compete in the fall. And so great job. Really appreciate the insights tonight. Let's turn to Coach Craig Bowl. Coach, one of the things that inspired me from the first time I met you, and it sure seems to have paid off 7 years later, and particularly in the mid of a crisis, you anchored your program in a couple of key values. Can you just share those, what you expect of your players and the like? And I think it is going to serve you well. Obviously, we've done well on the field and in the classroom, but welcome, Coach, and we'd ask that you share that, and then we'll talk some football.
You bet, Keener. It's always great to engage with you and the alumni, and I want to say welcome to all the alums that are viewing all around the country and around the world right now. You know, one of the things that we did, Keener, when we first were hired, and I think it's important, Tom, it was interesting because Randy will be on this Zoom here in a little bit, and Tom was there, and we met and we talked about our common vision. And it was apparent to me, Tom's concern about student athletes and his competitive excellence, and then having Randy in the room and just being able to share when the Cowboys were really good and what we were going to need to do to hopefully return Cowboy football back to national prominence. And one thing that I learned through the years is, Keener, it's not all about X's and O's, it's about Jimmy and Joe's. And the men that we attracted to the University of Wyoming was going to be critical as we put a product out there on the field. And so we developed what we called the Wyoming profile 7 years ago. As coaches, we sat in a room for about 3 days and we looked at all the attributes that we felt like were going to be successful for us as we developed our program, and how that was going to mesh into the fabric of the University of Wyoming. And that was so helpful to have a guy like Randy Wilniak, who was a quarterback on some of those great teams. And, you know, it sounds like a cliche, but times change, but people don't. And so we went through and we said, we're going to be very intentional and say, what type of guy are we looking at? And one that wanted to get a meaningful degree. We were going to value education and get a meaningful degree from a great institution. And so when we went out, we looked at those. Also thought it was going to be imperative to set the bar high and say, okay, what guys are going to have these attributes to win the Mountain West Conference Championship? And so we went through those two prisms that we looked at. And some of the attributes that we looked at, Keener, I can just, and we still use them today. Somebody who has a passion, a love for the game, somebody who's competitive, is a hard worker, mental and physical toughness, independent character, someone that's selfless, and that's hard to find in today's world. Somebody's mature, hungry, resourceful, confident, intelligent in the classroom, on the field, resilient, consumed with winning, stubborn, and have a laser-like focus. And so as we've gone through this prism that we've looked through, whether it was Josh Allen or some of the NFL players that we've had, and I look at the results that Tom had talked about that we're really proud of this last semester to have a team GPA of 3.35 in the midst of this turmoil. That shows you what kind of guys that we're looking for. And so there's a reason why we don't have names on the back of our jersey, Keener. There's a reason why we have one set of uniforms, and the brown and gold is really important to us and how we play Cowboy tough football. And I can remember Tom and Randy talking about how they want to play Cowboy tough football. I said, okay, that's what you want to do. This is not going to be a quick fix. And if you're going to be Cowboy tough, this is a process that we're going to go through. And we're not there yet, but I think we're moving the right direction.
Well, Coach, I love hearing that brown and gold. We just celebrated our 125th anniversary of our first banquet, June 20th, 1895, and the school colors were chosen, and gray was not included in that group. And I can tell you, our alumni love seeing the brown and gold run out there in the traditional colors. Coach, those values that our players have to have served you well during this turmoil. There's kids leaving and you all trying to crank them up and give them workout plans that they were going to be responsible for. Speak to that a little bit of what you've seen as the team has come back.
Right.
Have you been able to tell that they did take it seriously in protecting themselves and improving themselves while they were gone?
You bet. Character does come into play, particularly in times like this. And, you know, after our spring break, during that time, I was hoping that we could just keep them all here because I knew what a great community we were in. But as they traveled home, you know, it was a different time, and we had chances to interact with them via Zoom or other platforms. But you know, character can be really crystallized or galvanized when what you do when no one else is looking, when no one else is around. Are you back out there in your home site and you're finding a piece of grass to be able to run in, or a makeshift weight room in your garage, where you know what, accountability comes into taking personal responsibility. And, you know, Tom talked about, we were very fortunate. We had all these guys come back. We had 0 tests. And the guys were very vigilant on wearing masks and the amount of exposure that they had. The NCAA has provided us an opportunity for these players to come back on a voluntary basis. So, you know, we haven't been able to go through and quantify, okay, where's our bench press at? What's our 40 speeds at? But I can tell you our strength and conditioning staff, who's provided some safety while they're out there, they're really encouraged about where our attitude is with our team right now. And I've always believed this, Keener, that you win probably half of your games or what kind of attitude that you have during the summer. Now, whether you were at Virginia Tech or I was at Nebraska, or Randy was getting ready for the Cowboys, when these guys report back, if you do the work, you're going to be in a good shape. And if you haven't, there's no amount of work that you can do. And so the feedback that I've gotten from our players is the future really looks bright for the Cowboys.
That's good, Coach. Can you just speak briefly? Let's talk just a little bit about football. I mean, where are some strengths of your team? Some of our folks want to know where you have a lot of depth and strength, and I know you're highly encouraged and excited about the season.
We certainly are, and I think all the people who are football lovers out there know that if you're going to be good, it starts in the trenches. And, you know, we feel like we've got a great offensive line coming back, and there are guys who have gotten – 20 pounds stronger, not stronger, but 20 pounds heavier. And it's not the bad weight that I put on during this time. It's the good weight. And so I think we'll really be strong in the offensive line. Now, I also think you got to look at the other position as quarterback. You know, Randy was a great quarterback here, but I think we have a couple really, really competitive quality quarterbacks that are going to be coming back. Sean Chambers, was voted as a captain as a sophomore, which is a great honor for him. And Levi Williams came in and did some great things. It's interesting. Levi, in that bowl game was playing about 210 pounds, and he's 240 pounds now. And I don't know if you saw any YouTube when he was back home in Texas, he would have a rope and he would be pulling a Toyota 4Runner just on the ground. And so, the days of the quarterbacks being the pretty boys, those two guys, that's not where they're at. And if you have a competitive quarterback that steps in the huddle and those guys want to follow, I think we're in a great shape there. Over on defense, we lost a couple of really good linebackers. Logan Wilson was the guy that we really felt great about. He was a Wyoming Casper guy that came in and was drafted in the first pick of the third round. I think he'll have a long tenure. Cash Malawiyo is also a guy who was drafted by the Patriots. He's going to play for Belichick. So we had two linebackers go out, but we've got a guy, Chad Muma, and mark my words, and his grandfather played here and his father played here. Chad Muma has greatness written all over him. So I think we're going to be well stocked over on defense as well.
Well, Coach, just thank you so much. I'll tell you, from an alumni standpoint, having guys in the pros doesn't hurt us at all. It draws a lot. We actually have the Phoenix Cardinals setting us up an event when the Buffalo Bills play in Phoenix. And I don't know if we're going to get to November 15th in the pros, but we've got hundreds of alums who want to see Josh play down there. So it's big time for us. As we transition now, Randy, you're on the external side. Randy is our Senior Associate Athletic Director of Development and Revenue Enhancement. And we had a lot of questions, Randy, about Cowboy Joe Club donations, UW ticketing priorities, what game day experience may look like. Can you shed a little light on those areas, Randy?
Absolutely. Obviously, this has been an unprecedented time for everybody. And, specifically in the athletics world, we had to take a look at what we were doing. And obviously, when the pandemic hit, we hit the brake, pumped the brakes, and said, hey, we need to just reach out to our donors and our season ticket holders and really just tell them thank you for supporting the University of Wyoming over the last several years. And we did that initially. And we looked at extending our deadlines for season ticket holders to renew their tickets. We extended it all the way through June 15th. And even by doing that, we still offer the opportunity for them to do a payment plan. We know that everybody's going through a tough time, and we need to be as accommodating as we possibly can to take care of those folks. So a lot of different plans that we're going through right now, looking at, what it will look like on September 5th. We presented a plan to the Wyoming Department of Health and the governor's office. I know Tom's planning to meet with them next week. We're hoping to get some approval, some initial approval on what that will look like in terms of the percentage of capacity of the stadium and the Wildcatter. We have to look at who's going to get priority. Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to get our season ticket holders taken care of. Hopefully, we will have that number of fans allowed in the stadium, and priority will be a major component of that in terms of how long they've had season tickets and also what they've donated to the Cowboy Joe Club. So we're looking at a lot of different things, a lot of different plans that could all change. As we know, Tom told us, hey, we need to be nimble because they're definitely going to be changes coming our way. We just don't know what exactly what it's going to look like here in a couple of months, but we're trying to prepare for all those different scenarios. One of the things that we think is really, really important is still having a great game day experience at Wyoming. And yes, there's no question it's going to be different. We have to let our fans know that the game day experience will be different than it has in the past, but we're hoping to still accommodate tailgating, responsible tailgating, to have people not have big crowds, but we want to encourage people still to come down and tailgate and have a great time. And we're still trying to figure out if we're going to be able to use the indoor practice facility or not for our pregame functions and activities. Again, time will tell on that too.
Hey, Randy, we've had some thoughts about, are there going to be provisions for some students to get in the game, visiting team fans? Do you have any sense of how that may work right now? Maybe single game tickets for non-season ticket holders?
Yeah, we are really, we're really hoping that we will get the permission to have the number of folks in the stadium where we can accommodate our season ticket holders. We want to get in, we'd love to get in 1,500 to 2,000 students if at all possible. That will be a priority to us as well. We are obligated to some of the visiting teams to provide them tickets. We will also have a priority for our players' families to make sure they have access so they can watch, their kids play. So that's the number one priority. If we are able to provide any single game tickets, if is a key word, if we do, there will be a priority to our season ticket holders and our Cowboy Joe Club members to be able to buy those tickets on a limited basis.
Okay, and thank you, Randy. Hey, Tom, could I bounce back to you real quickly?
Yes, sir.
Yesterday, I heard you talk about the expectations of the visiting teams arriving in Laramie and how the safety protocol is going to work on that. Could you just touch base on that? I want to bounce back to that if I could, please.
Yeah, I mean, those are all being worked through as we develop, but it's pretty clear. For example, we're going to expect whoever we play in any sport to have been tested. Now, does that mean they were tested within 48 hours or they were tested within the last week or something? But we're not going to play someone who hasn't been tested unless something changes and there's reason to believe the testing is not working or it's inaccurate. But we've tested our kids and we will continue. And kind of the direction we're going right now, it's very costly. So this could change, but ideally we would like to test before competition And if you play multiple games in a week, test weekly. But there is some doctors and some epidemiologists that are coming up with some new ideas relative to testing portions of a team in a saliva test method. And then if any part of it would come back positive, we test the entire team. So we're still working through that. But bottom line is this: we are not going to put our student athletes at risk.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you coming back to that. Now let's get to some of our questions. You know, we had alums from all over the world, Anchorage, Alaska to Oslo, Norway, who are participating tonight. And all of you that are participating, thank you for submitting some great questions. I apologize in advance if we can't get to all of them. Hopefully Tom's and Coach Bowles and Randy's remarks have covered as many as possible. But we do have some alums teed up now to ask their questions live. And first, I want to introduce Mindy Otterdijk. She's the Vice President of Marketing at UWAA Federal Credit Union, tonight's sponsor. And I appreciate all you do, Mindy. And I do want to remind all of our members of the Alumni Association, you are eligible for membership in the UWAA Federal Credit Union. And in fact, my son, who's a 2014 graduate, he's taken advantage of it, and he lives in College Station, Texas, but UWAA has hooked him up with car loan and a new house loan. So Mindy, thank you for all you do, and looking forward to your comments and remarks.
Thanks, Keener. We are very proud to be a part of this, so thank you to the Alumni Association and Wyoming Athletics. We are the exclusive credit union of Wyoming Athletics, and we're very proud to be that sponsor. We can't wait for fall sports to come back. I've sat in on a lot of conversations and hearing what the fall will be like, but we will be there in our brown and gold, and we are very excited for football to return and to have athletics this fall. So thank you very much. We are proud to be a part of this as well. And like Keener said, to all the Alumni Association members, you can join UWAA and let us know what we can do for you and how we can help. So go Pokes.
All right, thank you, Mindy. Next up, Gary Cameron from Stevensville, Montana.
Thank you, Keener. I think I first would like to take this opportunity to thank Coach Bowl, Tom, Randy, and you, Keener, for all you do for the University of Wyoming. And in particular, Coach Bowl, thank you for your leadership in leading the Pokes back with a Cowboy tough culture. So my question for you, Coach Bowl, is what are the top 3 actions that you and your staff, coaching staff, are taking to motivate and inspire your team, given the unprecedented circumstances that we're dealing with we're all dealing with at this time?
Well, great question. And one thing I really believe is that young people, and I think people in general, are looking for leadership and consistency. And, you know, everybody has talked to me that young people have changed through the years, and young people haven't changed. Now our times have, but young people still want to be challenged. They still want to be loved. They still want to be held accountable and shown what they can become. And so during this time is what we can do to give a sense of community while everybody's socially distanced. And so, you know, football teams are a tight-knit group, and so it's been a challenge for us, but we've done a lot of things through virtual meetings. We've held players accountable as far as what they're doing in school. Our assistant coaches were engaged with all these guys as they transition all across the country, and we got actively involved like we normally do, but more so now. What have you been doing to make sure you're matriculating through with your online classes? And then also what they have done physically each day, and then giving them some sense of hope. Young people, you know, they want to have some hope. They want to have some clarity. They want to know, am I going to be okay? And so we painted a clear vision on what our protocol is going to be when they return back to campus, what expectations we had. You know, it's interesting, you know, all my colleagues around the country saying, well, I don't know if we can ask young people to do this or that. And we're asking them to do some uncommon things. You know, once they've come back to campus, they're not leaving. We're not going anywhere on 4th of July. We're going to be here through the duration, and then give them some sense of of stability, and so what the outlook could potentially be. And our guys have responded well. We've got a great team attitude. I think we're going to have as good a football team as what we've had since I've been our head coach.
All right. Thank you, Coach. And thank you, Gary. We really appreciate it. Next up, Thad Hunter, coming to us from Anchorage, Alaska, been active in our alumni network up there, loves watching the Pokes. He's got a question for Tom.
Thanks, Keener, Coach and Randy. Yeah, Tom, I got a question up here. Being in Alaska, TV and streaming is the primary way I can experience Pokes games. With the new Mountain West TV contract in place, do we know how that's going to affect the broadcasting of Wyoming games? Is the availability expected to increase? And have streaming options been negotiated with the third tier Mountain West contract yet?
Thad, you've got the language down. You're throwing out the third tier discussion. The third tier was in the middle of negotiations and close to being completed when COVID hit. And that has caused lots of retraction in the market. So I'd be disingenuous if I said we are really close to a third tier streaming deal. It has kind of gone backwards. So what does that mean? I guess the worst case scenario is we would end up with some sort of streaming platform like we had last year, which would just be done through the Mountain West Network. Now, I'll warn you, it is possible, though, that you will have to pay to gain access, like a monthly fee, whereas in the past it has been free on the Mountain West Network. But our other broadcasts on Fox and CBS Sports, the total number of games in football is slightly less than the total number of games on our CBS Sports ESPN package, but very minimally. I don't think you'll notice a difference. Basketball, it's a little bit, the delta is a little larger. There's quite a few fewer games on those two networks in basketball than on our previous deal, but they should be made up on the streaming portion of it, and you should be able to have access to watching those broadcasts. So I think at the end of the day, I will tell you, we have been very excited about the interest Fox has demonstrated in the Mountain West Network. And I think if we can get this season kicked off, people will be very happy with the Fox partnership.
Thank you, Tom. Let's bring in Liz Hagler from Midland, Texas.
Liz, you're on mute.
There we go. I was just saying, thank you all so much for doing this town hall. I love it. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. My question is for Keener and Tom. I think it's important for stakeholders to just understand the decision-making process and the path forward. So how is UW making decisions right now in terms of 2020 fall plans? And what are the considerations being made? And essentially, who are the primary decision makers?
Okay, I can start that, Liz. Acting President Theobald, I cannot say enough about how he has stepped up in his leadership beginning in March when things were turned upside down. The university transitioned in a couple of weeks to taking online or campus classes to all online. Great tribute to President Theobald, our faculty, and the many administrators who made that happen. But then looking toward the fall, because that was going to carry us through the summer, he assembled 5 committees that were comprised of over 100 faculty, staff, and students and administrators that developed a draft reopen plan. It was approved by the Board of Trustees on June 10th with a slight modification on June 22nd. Actually, it was to allow some double rooms because we were planning on all single rooms, but there was an interest, and so we're going to have 138 rooms. That plan was founded on a few basic principles. One, keep the virus out, reduce the probability of transmission, rapidly identify and contain cases, reduce the environmental contamination in the classroom setting, and clear communication to our constituents. Testing is going to be substantial with us. Our administrative staff and faculty are scheduled to return to the office in August, but that will be after a couple of week testing and then a couple of week quarantine period. And there's a lot of personal responsibility, just like Tom shared about with the mask. And there's there's going to be a lot of personal responsibility to follow the safety protocols for all of us as faculty, staff, administrators, and especially students. But unequivocally, the students want to be back. This plan will continue to evolve, I'm certain, with changing conditions, but we have a plan to be back online. I actually was with one of our civil engineering professors, and this is just an example. He typically will have 24 students in his class. He still will have 24 students, but over a period of the week, he will have only 4 at a time in his classroom to protect the social distancing. This clearly is a plan that has the endorsement and support of the Board of Trustees, and certainly continued guidance from health officials, the governor, and all of that, I'm certain will play a role. But we are making every effort to open the campus safely and to have an environment where our students can have the college experience. It's going to be different, at least for the fall. We believe it's a temporary setback, but we'll see. We've got a lot of patience, it appears, from our alumni and friends and constituents and students and faculty. Everybody's working together to make the best out of this situation. And Tom, is there anything else from your standpoint that maybe I missed, or there's other protocols or things we may have wanted to cover?
No, I guess I would say athletics was part of the campus-wide discussion, clearly, but we had to move at a little more rapid pace because we had, if we're going to compete, we have to get kids back to campus and get them training. And our goal was June 1st with a 14-day quarantine to follow and testing. So we were moving at a little faster pace. But just to give Liz, to give you an idea of how we structured it, we created 9 committees and littered those committees with staff members and had one person in multiple committees across the board. So Wildcatter operations, tailgating and IPF were another one, stadium operations, marketing and communications, ticket operations, sideline operations, concession operations, football team ops, press box media operations. All of those have been pretty much dramatically changed, and we have a plan forward, and we are going over the plan with the State Department of Health, the Governor's Office, Albany County Department of Health, the University Board of Trustees. They're in the loop, legal. So we're communicating with a lot of people. So the decision tree is, I would say, recommendations by by athletics, sign off with the Board of Trustees. But I would guess final approval comes, in our case, from the Department of Health in Cheyenne. And they have been great to work with so far, and they really value how we're trying to manage through this, and we have good communication. So that's about all I got for you, Liz, but make sure you tell Matt hello.
And Liz, frankly, from the Alumni Association, we're taking our cue from all of those sources as well. Our engagement is going to look different in the fall. It is extremely difficult to host the kinds of events that we're used to hosting, and you have social distancing and all the protections that have to be in place. Frankly, the responsibility of the host of hosting large events. We have had just tremendous success in our first entree into these virtual events, bringing people into the fold from Japan, the Middle East. People have never been involved with us. So a lot of our events and activities are going to be this way, and we hope to make them as personal as possible. So Mindy, do you have a question? We've got time for a couple of more questions. I've got 1 or 2 from our other guests, but if you have one, we'll certainly take it up.
Thanks, Keener. I would just like to ask Coach Bowl. There's a lot going on right now, and a lot of it is not the most positive communication and just everything that we're dealing with. So I would like to know, if everything goes as planned, what is the one thing that you're most excited about for football to return this fall?
You know what, I think football is, everybody's clamoring for some sense of normalcy, and football is part of the fabric of college campuses in the fall. Now, as Tom says, it's going to look differently. But I can tell you, I cannot wait to be able to, for me, to be able to stand in front of our team as we get ready to go out and take the field at War Memorial Stadium. And I don't know how the sidelines are going to look or the fans, but one of the biggest pleasures I get is to be able to look in these young men's eyes and see their competitive nature to carry the brown and gold out there on that field. And I think we're going to have the best football team we've had since I've been our head football coach. And I know I don't want to make that as an overstatement, but I think you're going to like what you see.
Thank you, Mindy and Coach. Tom, I want to come back. We had a question or two about the budget challenges that you've had. You've touched on them. Folks are wondering, can this ultimately have some impact on reduction in sports and opportunities for our student athletes? Can you speak briefly to that, please?
The short answer to that is yes. I mean, if you don't play football, it's a really difficult situation. If we can play football and get to a 50% capacity, we can work through this thing with a couple $1 million delta, which at a university this large is doable. If we don't play, it gets pretty dicey. But with respect to cutting sports and the other budget issues that the state is facing, which are going to trickle down to us, our issue is hit different than the rest of campus. Rest of campus gets a block grant amount of money and they live off of it. We get about 40% of our money from the block grant, about 60 self-generated. The 60% is going to be reduced too. So we have to be prepared for a double whammy. But the bottom line is this: we have 17 sports. The NCAA minimum is 16. So there's not a lot of money to be saved by cutting one sport. I mean, it doesn't really do you a lot of good. I'm not saying that it would not happen though. Things can get out of your control, and we just got to work through this. But we're going to focus on making reductions, but we're going to focus on growing revenues. And that's where we need the support of the Alumni Association and members, because we're going to have to dig deeper. And if that's doable, thank you. If it's not, please try again.
Hey, Tom, we got about 30 seconds for another brief comment. Where's the NCAA's guidelines and from other conferences, and how is all that working? I know there's guidance coming from the NCAA or the conferences, and can you describe briefly how that's working?
Yeah, there is guidance from the NCAA. They're not mandating anything, but the conference commissioners are meeting now. The 13 conference or 11 conference commissioners, excuse me, and they are going to come out with a document. I don't know if it's going to be a white paper, best practices, what, but it'll help us, and it'll be really primarily focused on student athlete and how to do competition, how to deal with officials, how to deal with sideline crew, how to deal with ball. And I kind of know what that's going to say. I'm looking forward to reading it and make sure it's consistent with the plans we are making.
That's great. Thank you. Well, I tell you all, as we wrap up, I just want to again thank Coach Bowl, Tom, and Randy for your participation. I sincerely appreciate the partnership between the UWAA and athletics. I mean, I spent side on both sides of the fence, and when I came here in November of 1997, within 3 weeks, I knew this place was different in the collaboration and the like. And I just let you know that our passionate alumni are going to be behind you this coming year. And Mindy, thank you for your all's partnership. You are remarkable partners. And then finally, to our 800 plus brown and gold champions, your support in 2020 helped lift us to great engagement heights that we had not experienced before. We just earnestly ask for your continued support this coming year, as we want to go over 1,000 of you brown and gold champions that are helping us in every regard, encouraging students to come to the university, helping kids get good jobs, promoting us and welcoming when UW folks come to your neighborhoods and your communities. And then especially to continue to stress the importance of membership in the Alumni Association. It is extremely valuable to us, and we couldn't do without that support. I tell you, this has been a special first night. Be looking for more of these. We expect in July, the dates to be determined, that we'll have Coach Gerald Madison and our new head basketball coach, Jeff Linder. And you're going to really enjoy hearing from them just as well. I know Coach Bowl and all the coaches get along so well in athletics, and there's a great camaraderie and pulling for one another. I'll tell you again, this has been special tonight. Thank you all for participating. We wish you the very best. Stay safe and healthy, and go Cowboys.